Tariffs do not cause inflation. Inflation is caused by a massive increase in the quantity of money, money supply growth, and money velocity increasing. That only happens with higher government spending, higher government indebtedness, and more money printing. Tariffs may increase individual prices if the production of the good is entirely made in foreign countries and if demand is inelastic. However, if tariffs are going to make an individual price rise, the rest of prices for the same quantity of money would not go up. In fact, they would go down. Higher money supply growth, higher government spending, and higher indebtedness. That is what creates inflation. Tariffs are also a geopolitical weapon. If we look at the reality of these economies, what we can see is that they have two Achilles heels. Number one, they have very significant levels of industrial and productive overcapacity. Number two, they need US dollars in their enormous trade surpluses in order to stabilize their currencies and their economies. Therefore, the most likely scenario is that those tariffs will be absorbed by the producers. When they have overcapacity, they need the trade surplus, they need US dollars. Therefore, most of those tariffs are going to be absorbed by the producers. These are the major trade partners of the United States. What you can see in red are the two economies that are also the ones that impose highest levels of tariffs on the global economy. It is very important to understand that the United States cannot be the only economy in the world that has open borders, open windows, and open doors, while everybody else is imposing more restrictions. Immigration, drug trafficking, people trafficking, the utilization of exports to weaponize the fight against liberal democracies, and the use of exports to collect more dollars and finance increasingly interventionist economies is something that we need to take into account. Everybody talks about protectionism when it's a Trump administration. However, nobody seems to be talking about protectionism when it's about the global economy. And when we look at global economies, what we can see is the following. This is interesting. Russia, Indonesia, India, Brazil, China, these are amongst the most protectionist economies in the world, the ones that put the highest number of trade barriers and tariffs. So, what we can see is also a geopolitical response with the Trump tariffs. These countries are getting together to try to create a system that, on the financial side and on the political side, opposes the United States and the West. At the same time, they need enormous exports to the United States and the inflow of dollars. So, one of the reasons behind these tariffs that President Trump is announcing is this geopolitical weapon against those that are trying to use their export revenues to change the system and even combat the West. Furthermore, what we need to understand about the European Union is that the biggest tariffs imposed on European Union businesses are made and imposed by the European Union itself. The enormous taxes, enormous trade barriers, enormous regulatory burdens, and the gigantic so-called CO2 tax All of those are destroying the competitiveness of the industry, agriculture and farming in the European Union. If the European Union lifts its trade barriers against the United States, which are disguised under the environmental, regulatory and fiscal umbrella, then there would be no risk of tariffs. There would actually be a partnership that would be successful for both the European Union and the United States. Money supply growth is actually soaring because governments are spending like there's no tomorrow, because money velocity is growing as governments use deficit spending to increase public hiring and also public consumption. All of those elements are the ones that create inflation. If we go to the next graph, what we can see is how the US economy is weakening precisely because of interventionist policies. A massive increase in government spending and government hiring. More than 1.6 million new public employees, government employees under the Biden administration, and much higher government spending. 10% increase only in 2024, $2 trillion more government spending than in 2019. What we can see is that we are going to see strong negative revisions of the job market. That is showing how weak the economy is, because with 1.6 million new government employees compared with the Trump administration, first Trump administration, minus 600,000 public employees, the level of labor participation and employment to population ratios are still below 2019 levels. Core inflation is rising. The PCE index is showing that inflation is back. And inflation is back because government spending is soaring, because deficit spending is way too high, money supply growth is at 27-month highs, and the Federal Reserve decided to change its monetary policy and reduce the normalization of the balance sheet in June of 2024. This is the reason why core inflation is rising. The latest figure of GDP shows declining investment and rising government spending. That is not a good omen for the US economy. What we are seeing is a bloated GDP that comes from government spending, that comes from government debt, which is exceeding the level of GDP creation. And furthermore, this level of investment is now declining. These are not positive elements. That's why the US needs pro-growth, lower taxes, lower government spending, and better productivity enhancement policies. Keep defending freedom.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, leave your comments below, and keep defending freedom. Thank you very much.